I think we're extremely close now to the point of no return. Just a few more slight glitches, and we're going to be in an uncontrolled breach of containment. That is a Class 7 accident.
Americans think this crisis is over, or that some even think that maybe it's solved or it's contained. It's not. What's happening right now?
In the last 2 weeks, everything we knew about that accident has been turned upside down.
Do they have control of the situation at the site?
No.
Thank you for being here, Paul. We really
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
presence. Now, I'm going to start off by asking you, can you tell us how long the contaminated water has been, how long the contamination has been leaking into the water?
Very likely since the explosions and the meltdown at Fukushima Daiichi in March of 2011.
Wow, that is quite a long time. Now, how much and what sort of radiation is leaking into the Pacific? I know there's all different types, so if you can explain that in a little detail.
Well, clearly what we've seen now is the movement of radioactive hydrogen, tritium, which is a mobile radioactive isotope, but clearly radioactive cesium, 134, 137, strontium-90. We're seeing a full range of radioactive contaminants now moving, which indicate that the damaged cores of these reactors, the meltdowns themselves, are now contributing to the contamination of the Pacific Ocean and groundwater that's moving at about a rate of 300 to 400 metric tons per day. So, but these numbers are really only approximations and will vary, but clearly a lot of radioactivity is moving through groundwater into the ocean.
Now, why is the plant continuing to leak? You'd think they would have, or maybe they already have, taken steps to contaminate some of this leakage.
Well, they had, TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power Company, put up a temporary wall between the reactor wreckage and the ocean, but this has really acted nothing more than just like a dam, so that the water is building up behind the dam, and now it's breached the dam, it's spilling over, and the radioactive contamination is moving into the Pacific. But right now we're seeing the Japanese government is in chaos. The fact that the revelation of this extensive contamination is coming now more than 2 years after the accident occurred indicates that it's completely out of control. And the command and control is in chaos in Japan right now. And really the big question is, why aren't they calling international aid to address the radioactive contamination of the Pacific Ocean?
In the best of the rest of the news, the Fukushima nuclear disaster could become a whole lot worse thanks to the Daiichi nuclear power plant's stricken nuclear number 4 reactor.
Why do you suspect they aren't calling international aid?
So what we're seeing is a veil being drawn over the accident to promote an agenda for the restart of these reactors in Japan, and to try to contain the bad news rather than the radiation.
That's very concerning, because the radiation is much worse than just the news itself.
Year cleanup. How long will it take to clean this up, in your view?
50 to 100 years.
TEPCO only recently admitted contaminated groundwater is seeping into the Pacific Ocean every day, worrying those beyond the shores of Japan. This supermarket in the South Korean capital has provided a Geiger counter for customers so they can test the fish they're buying. They no longer import from Japan, but given the close proximity, some customers are still concerned. This Seoul resident says, I buy fish here precisely because they have this radiation detector. But I don't really know if it's safe or not. I can only base my decisions on the label.
The fuel core of Unit 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. More than 1,500 fuel rods sit in a damaged storage pool 30 metres above ground. Safely removing them is the next big challenge for the plant's owner, TEPCO.
The reactor was under maintenance. So we have this full fuel pool that's sitting at the top of this reactor. And if something happened to that reactor and the pool fell onto the ground, the rods would start fissioning and possibly catch fire or explode. It could then start a chain reaction of the other spent fuel pools on site, the other nuclear fuel that's on site that's still left in the other reactor buildings, because there are 6 reactors at Fukushima. You only hear about 4, but there's actually 6 there.
And what would happen if a fire ignited in these fuel rods?
Well, we would be subjected to an extreme fallout situation where we would have to shelter indoors for a period of time, possibly a couple months, if not longer.
You're talking about worldwide?
For the Northern Hemisphere.
The Northern Hemisphere would have to go indoors for possibly several months?
Yes.
Japan's former ambassador to Switzerland and anti-nuclear campaigner.
The Unit 4 contains 10 times more cesium-137 than Chernobyl. So in case the worst occurs, a total withdrawal will be imposed, which means this can be considered as the beginning of the ultimate catastrophe of the world and the planet.
Now, what can be done beyond these dams that you mentioned before in terms of contaminating the leakage?
Well, in order to contain the leaks, we have to isolate the radioactive waste. But indications are right now that the reactor structures themselves have been breached. It's very likely that some of the radioactive material, the melted cores, have moved into the earth. And so the containing, it's beyond containment right now. I think that's the tragedy that we see unfolding as Fukushima's radioactive water crisis is only beginning.
That's very concerning. How far has this radiation spread, and how fast is it going while it spreads?
Again, some of the radioactive isotopes are more mobile than others. The radioactive tritium, the hydrogen, it moves anywhere water goes because it is radioactive hydrogen and makes up a component of water. So the spread of the contamination is only going to be as effectively monitored as the technology is out there. And frankly, we don't know the full extent. Nobody really knows the full extent of the contamination at this point as it moves through not only groundwater but also through the atmosphere and into ocean currents. So we're in a very grave situation right now, as the Japanese government has declared this is a new radiation emergency coming out of a worsening situation at Fukushima Daiichi.